This is IBM Museum. In a recent video, I've talked about my PS2 Model 30286 having a Kingston 386 Now CPU upgrade. I haven't shown on camera, so I thought I would cover the Kingston 386 Now CPU upgrades for the PS2 models and just go over the basic layout, show a little bit of the revisions of what they look like, and then I'm going to bring up the web page that I worked on years ago with YouTube's UXW Bill to diagram these modules and give as much information as we could. I'll link the page in the video description as well. So the modules that I have up here are the LCM modules. You can see it's identified as SX, and then there's a number of 2 digits, meaning the speed of the 386 SX CPU that's on the board, and then there's a 3 or 4 digit coding that Kingston used for specifying which modules go on to what systems. These LCM modules are for the IBM PS2 Model 50Z. They have that socket that goes into the plastic leaded chip carrier socket, and a comparable socket to what they have for the numeric coprocessor if you had one in here. And the arrow that's in that socket, that's for the pin 1 if you do add the numeric coprocessor. Now these modules, as I've got them arranged for the speed, this is an SX20 LCM, meaning 20 megahertz 386 SX. Now Kingston had the AMD 386 SX CPUs on their board, mostly because for the higher speeds, Intel did not even produce those speeds. Now, we're even starting at the 20 megahertz version. Here's the 25 megahertz version. And here is, get these shown right. I've moved them around. So this is the 25 megahertz module. And this is the 33 megahertz. And this is the fastest that these boards are designed to go, or the fastest CPU that's on there. Now, we did look at what Intel called the snap-in, and that's the CPU portion of that power pack video that I had before. And it's interesting to note that 20 megahertz is the fastest that this snap-in module from Intel was designed to go. So at 20 megahertz, that's just where the Kingston CPU upgrade modules are getting started. And this is actually for the PS2 Model 50 and 60 because of the pin grid array. But I had that, and I wanted to show it just as a comparison between the Intel and the Kingston modules. And of course, for the higher speeds, the Kingston modules are more desirable. Now, much of the time, the Kingston modules, they'll go through and they'll mark the revision, and for most of the different types of modules will be revision D. And on the webpage I'll show later on, it will show the different outlines for the different versions, typically the C and D versions that I did years ago. Now, and it just between the different revisions, it's a little bit different layout. Has the revision C here for the 20 and 25 megahertz, and then the 33 megahertz is a revision D. So this is a great module to have, and I have some of the 33 megahertz even in place on the MUL 30-286. I've got those 33 megahertz modules, and these are nice little chips, modules to have on your system. And of course you have to run, there's a utility that goes through and enables the cache and to have the CPU where it's optimized, it runs faster on the system with the cache enabled. And there's quite a bit of difference. I think we looked at that on the MUL 30-286, showing that it's like a 7 megahertz AT comparable when that utility is not running, and as soon as you run it, it goes through and just triples or quadruples the optimization of that CPU module. And we can look at a little bit more of the benchmarking of this stuff later on, even as a comparison to the Intel module. I'll try and get a comparable level system that I can go through and do a comparison between them. As a for instance, here's the SX25 GAM, and this is designed for the PS2 MUL 50 and MUL 60 as well, with the pin grid array. It's got the cache chip. So these are effectively, this is at 25 megahertz and this is being 20 megahertz, but these would go on the same system. I think that is the only GAM module that I have out. And then I have some modules. We'll look at this on the webpage. I think this is for the MUL 25-286 and MUL 30-286, the LEM modules. And those can have what's called a type 1 or type 2 planar, that the orientation of the 286 CPU is slightly different. And so this is designed to rotate. And of course, they're a particular size in the Intel package. They went through and had little cutouts so it fits in. And also normally with the Intel module, you did not have a socket for the 387SX numeric coprocessor. You used it, if you had a numeric coprocessor, you used that 287 that on the planar. And the Kingston modules actually went through and had the socket for them. And this board here is marked as an SX25 LFM, and I'm not even sure of what system that this goes on to. Probably not a PS2. There may be another brand of system out there that Kingston had this for. I tried to look up a little bit of information earlier on this, and I could not find any information at all. And I'm going to go through it, and I'll initially, and there's another 25 megahertz LEM. So I have the 25 and the 33 megahertz, and the revision C and revision D. And I can cover those other modules, the other, for the 3026 and for the Mul 50 and Mul 60, for going through and showing these. And I'll just briefly go through, and you can see the layout of like the revision C is similar for the different megahertz speed of the module. The layout's the same. I'm not sure. Some of these modules are a little bit of junk on them. And I can go through with this camera even to see. Yeah, and of course it brings out a lot of the dirt. I've tried to clean this up a little bit, and the label's a little bit washed out, but there's the CPU, of course, the 386SX at whatever rated speed. And then, as I pointed out, the socket for the 387SX. This is an Ostec cache controller. The cache chip itself is this chip here, and then it has the socket for to where you put this assembly in, seated in that 286 socket on the motherboard or the planar of the system. This revision C is a little bit, maybe a little bit cleaner for the, as I said, the same revision, so that the chips are all in the same relative positions in that. And then for the revision D of the 33 megahertz module, slightly different orientation, a little bit less busy on the back. And this is actually an AT&T equivalent of that cache chip. See, that's a Toshiba version. That's an AT&T version there. So that's a rundown of the modules themselves for like the Mul 50Z. And I have to see if I can, which is the better. Okay, let me, I can go through and I can zoom. Okay, zoom out. And I think I'll go through and pull it up on the other webcam here of, I've got my notes from years ago that I went through, and that LCM module for the 50C, and I marked out that's how the general layout of the revision C were. And who knows, how old these notes are, maybe a dozen years or so. And then even disconcerting enough, the nibbles on the paper, this is for the LEM modules, Mul 2526 and Mul 3026, revision C and revision D. And then that's the GAM module for the Mul 50 and 60. And then, of course, a lot of that eaten away probably by mice to wherever I had that stored. And luckily it didn't go through, they didn't go through and damage any of the modules or the diskette pack. These are brand new. This is even a manual for the included manual. And you'd have the diskettes in here. You have even where you could add that to the IBM binders for the model. and they go through for the installation of these. And I can probably go through with my scanning abilities now to scan booklets like these and all the included literature with it, even announcing other products, a reply card, and instructions to the user, just a little sheet that they talk about the radio interference. And this is still sealed in the plastic, but they're talking about there's a label in here that you can stick on the front of the unit when you upgraded it. And even classic style where they had the card, or you could remove that pocket. Maybe that's, I don't think that's for the diskette or anything like that. And they went through and included both the 3.5 inch and the 5 1/4. And I have the version 2.02, and there's online. And let me go through and bring that up. Go through and bring up the web page. And I want to, okay. And, okay. No, get the right thing selected. Okay. And so this, and I need to get where I can interact with it, just because okay, no. Okay, there I get the ability to interact with it. And I'll provide the link in the video description, but this goes through and it explains how the modules are identified. They're always that leading SX, and then the speed of the 36SX, and then what the module is. And let's go through. And of course, you can go through and read this page by going online when I have the link. And this is on the Ardent tool, but it's a reproduction of the original that UXW Bill has on his page. And you can click on that link to go to the original page where we have these. And there's the GAM module for the Model 50 and 60. The LEM modules for the Model 2526 and Model 3026, since those shared the same planar. And even pictures showing how they fit on the board and what to be mindful for that Dallas module. That's right there. And I think I had a video with talking about modifying that Dallas module and specifying that the wire leads, they come very close to that board if you have a Kingston or an Intel module in there. And then there's the outline. That's the LCMD. And I think that is for that might be for like the IBM AT model. Probably like a pin grid array maybe. There's thoughts on upgrading and even some interaction that we had in the past to compile the page and get all the diagrams and images going. And that's all I did was to give the diagrams, and it shows here that I even sent a module to him. And this may be where he didn't have the software or something else in place. And even Kingston included the remover that you see there, and I've got a couple of those around, to remove the 286 CPU from the board. And then they're showing the two different orientations of that 286 by how it just rotates 9 degrees between the Type 1 and the Type 2 planar that's on the Model 25-286 and Model 30-286. Okay. And just all the instructions that would be there in that manual, and how to enable the cache on the chip to run it in that optimized mode to where it, so it runs being the most capable. And even the talk about the Windows, whether you've gone through and if you've switched from a 286 to a 386, there's different Windows modes at that level for Windows 3.0 and 3.1. And we saw the PS2 Model 30-286 run in 386 enhanced mode, and that normally is requiring a 386SX at the very minimum CPU and 2 megabyte of RAM, I think, is for it to run in the 386 enhanced mode. And UXWBL goes through and talks about the different installation versions and what the different modes that they're able to run in. So that is just a quick overview of the CPU upgrade modules. And I'm doing good for time. I'm 22 minutes. I'll return to the top of the page. I will include this link. And in later videos, I even plan to go over some other upgrades that Kingston was involved with. They had their version, and it was AOX has some of these marked as well, but they're just rebranded for the different types. And this is a microchannel 16-bit adapter, and it has a 386 DX CPU and even a 387 numeric coprocessor. And it would be a 387 DX since it's paired with the DX 386 CPU. And these are 20 megahertz in speed, and it has memory. So this is ultimately CPU and memory, and the microchannel is a multi-processor bus. So you have this in a slot, microchannel slot, and it would help out the host CPU on the system and had its own, memory abilities as well, and just enhancing the performance of those 16-bit microchannel systems, be it that they had either a 286 CPU at the very minimum or a 386SX. And then there is the 32-bit version, and you can see that is marked with a Kingston label there on one of the chips. And it has that 46DX CPU and again memory. So you would have this in a 32-bit microchannel system, and it also has, it does have the keyways removed for being able to be used in a 16-bit system as well. So this goes through and adds, in the same way, adds that 46 DX processing power to the host system. And I'll be covering these in a little bit more detail and showing the pages for these in later videos. But that's the range of the Kingston upgrades. Everything from the 386SX to the 386DX and the 46DX CPUs. So, okay. So that's a good wrap up. Right at 26 minutes. And we'll have a video that's under a half hour in length, which is good if I can remain on topic and cover adequately and give links to the pages that talk about these modules so people can go through and see for themselves. Search around eBay and see if they can find these modules. They're not as plentiful and they might be commanding a little bit higher price nowadays than what it used to be. But if you enjoy this video, click on that like button, please. Let me know that you have liked the video. And by all means, leave comments. Ask questions. I'm getting some questions asked on a previous video by someone that found the system at their e-waste. And it's a lucky find. They found one of those 77 PS2 Model 77 I's. And, my e-waste, I think now for my local dump, they don't even do an e-waste collection site. They just have you dump it in the main landfill. And a lot of time before, they had security cameras and they wouldn't let you touch the stuff. They wouldn't let you go diving through there. Or you had to do it very secretively. And I got a UPS out of there with a bad battery. People don't realize that you just switch the battery and that those things work. But he found that system in the e-waste locally for him and saved it away, brought it home, and is going through and trying to get it operational again. That's an excellent find to find a microchannel system in e-waste. And people just don't realize that even though that's out of date, 30 years, a system that was done 30 years ago, that people are interested in those and they can sell them on eBay. That's the better alternative in a lot of cases. And he's going through and he's prompting me for questions, and I gave him the lead of the page and to where he can go through and ask enough questions to get that system running again. And that's great. And give him all the links to the community, get him involved if he wants to go through and come on. If he doesn't like Facebook, he can go on the SIF news group. And we have that Facebook group as well. And maybe it's time for me to provide links to those as well. That's the places to go to and be a part of the community and ask your questions, and you'll get answers and even showing off the systems that you have. So, but there's going to be lots of content like this and very, a wide range of topics I'm going to cover. So subscribe if you have not already, and recommend it to your friends if they're interested in this stuff too. But that is all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.